What's up, everybody? Here we are again, our ENCORE Education video series continuing. Today is truly a continuation in a series we're doing with Dan Allison, who I will reintroduce here in a moment. But you've got Elliot Bassett, Chief Operating Officer of Ellerbrock-Norris, on the call. You've got me, Andy Bassett, here as well. I'm the president of Ellerbrock-Norris, and we're really excited to continue a conversation with Dan Allison today around building your business with referrals. We all want to do that. We all strive to grow and build our businesses in the most efficient and effective ways possible. And I think many of us can agree referrals are a way we do that. So I'll reintroduce Dan. Dan is the founder and president of the Feedback Marketing Group. He has helped firms large and small consult and build their business in many ways. One of those being really around this topic. How do you build your business through the referral and referral platform? So to recap, last video, we talked a lot about the 7 main reasons clients don't refer, and we dissected and dug into those a little bit. So today, what we're going to kind of dive into is, now that we've thought about that, let's think about what are the 5 characteristics of a good referral relationship, whether that's with new clients we're bringing on or existing clients we've worked with. And Dan's going to walk us through those 5. We'll kind of dive in, and Elliot and I'll ask some questions around it and dissect the 5 key characteristics. So at that, Dan Allison, it is all you.
Good seeing you again, guys.
Yeah.
So Andy, like you said, if anybody watched the last one about the 7 reasons clients don't refer, they would know that we learned those things by interviewing thousands of clients themselves about the topic. And as we did that over the years, we really started to see where are the huge gaps that exist that stop somebody who seems to be a really good client and seems to be very happy from taking that next step and telling other people, hey, you ought to work with this company. So we've really seen that there are those 5 characteristics that if a client possesses the 5 characteristics, they will not just be willing to refer, but pretty consistent in how often they do it. Now, the problem becomes in 17 years and thousands of interviews on, I think, 5 different continents that we've interviewed people, we've never met a client that has more than 3 of the 5 characteristics when we interview them. So what you're going to find is, even if a client had 3 or even 4 out of the 5 characteristics, missing that one little characteristic can really slow down their ability to refer. So I'll just kind of walk you guys through the 5, and I would encourage any business owner watching this or any professional watching this to think of some of your best clients and honestly ask yourself, do they in fact possess these characteristics? So the first one seems incredibly simple, but I'll explain why it's not so simple. So first characteristic is that a client has got to feel that they have experienced so much value from your company that they would confidently take the risk and recommend you to somebody who is very important in their life. Now, simple statement, but there are 2 words in there that are critical, value and risk. So in all the years of doing this, if I line up 20 clients of the exact same company, and I ask them to explain to me from their perspective, what would a valuable experience look like? What does that mean? You know, in your experience in the past, what does value mean? I would get 20 completely different answers. Every client has their own paradigm of expectation, experience, value, and how do you exceed my expectations? But when you look at the second component, risk, all 20 of those people define the risk associated with confidently saying, I work with Andy, you should work with Andy. They all define that risk differently. There's always risk anytime I confidently put my reputation on the line to recommend anything, right? Sometimes, though, it's not that big a deal. If I make a recommendation, and this is a really close buddy of mine, if he has a bad experience, he'll probably give me some crap for a while, but he'll get over it, right? If it's somebody that I really look up to and I'm worried about my reputation risk, might be a different deal. So the idea here is, before this characteristic, nothing else matters. You've got to establish that your client experiences so much value that the risk almost does not exist when they take action and refer. So I often teach firms, how do you exactly do that then? You can't guess, does my client, I think they might feel that way. I hope they feel that way. And I find that most organizations, even the very large ones that we've worked with over the years, they don't have a process for how do we generate honest feedback from our current client base. And I don't mean mailing, surveys or, digital click here, scale of 1 to 5, click there. I mean, sitting down with the clients that are very important to the firm and having questions prepared to learn from their perspective about their experience. So learning, in what areas are we really delivering value to you? And in what areas can we focus to improve the experience? How do you feel about our communication between our company and you? There's a variety of different questions that can be asked, but I think it's a simple idea that's very overlooked by most companies. And as a result, you've got a lot of marginally satisfied clients. Not upset, not trying to leave, just not out raving about you. So that's characteristic number 1.
So before you go to number 2, Dan, when you say value, I think that can be defined in a lot of different ways. And as you mentioned, is different to every client. But how is it, I guess, is it safe to say that we just have to go in and get that feedback to understand what value means to the client and if we're driving that value, or is there another way you would define it, I guess, if that makes sense?
I believe personally that you need to allow the client to define value. Every book I've ever read in sales, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, all the stuff from the back in the day, right? It all talked about, develop your elevator speech and your unique value proposition and why are you different, all those things. And the reality is none of that matters if your client doesn't feel that's actually valuable. We like to say this is our value prop. Well, is it? Is that what they would say when I ask them what's valuable to them? Because if not, all it is your marketing message. It's not the truth. So yeah, I always let the clients value. But second benefit of that, Elliot, is it really allows you to evaluate the way you convey your value in your marketing, your website. Let your clients tell you the words they use to describe you, and evaluate, does that line up with how we perceive ourselves?
Yeah, because I think it's natural, and in probably a lot of the spaces that you consult in, but in our business, in the insurance business, or one side of our business, it's natural for us we understand what we think is valuable to a client, but that is not oftentimes the same thing that a client sees as value. A client could see a simple thing as quick turnaround time or communication as the most valuable thing, when we look at protecting their assets and their livelihood as the most important thing, or whatever it might be. And so I do think that's super important.
Yeah, and a good example, like from your industry, also depends on the experience that the people have had in their past. So if you ask one guy what makes a insurance firm, a commercial P&C firm valuable, right? They might say, the cheapest rates and, save me money and things like that. Except until you go through a guy like me who woke up one night and my son said, hey, why are there no lights in the basement and everything's flickering and there's about a foot of water on the basement and our entire house flooded? I mean, and the way that they handled that stressful process, to me, that was what value was. Price became irrelevant because of experience. But if I haven't had that experience, maybe I thought, cheap price. So that's the stuff you just learn from people, and their values are born out of their own experience.
Absolutely, yeah. Great. Well, so what then is number 2 on our characteristics?
Yeah. So number 1, all that does is say, okay, if they value what we do enough that they would refer, that's awesome. But that just means they're willing to refer. The second piece is I find that any given business owner that I interview, regardless of industry, I always ask them, hey, what makes you different from all the other firms within 10 miles of here that claim to do what you do? I don't care if you're a home builder or a contractor or whatever, manufacturer. Why are you different from anybody else who does what you do within 10 miles? And almost unequivocally, they nail the answer, right? They've said it their whole life. It's at the core of their being, it's that. The second thing I ask them to do is write me a comprehensive list of all of the services that are available to anyone through that firm. Okay, and I'll leave the business owner. And normally, very rarely do you have a business that only does one thing, right? We do this one thing and we're the best. Normally they have all these ancillary services. So I do that. The problem is then I go to the clients and I ask the exact same question. Hey, why is this firm different from the other ones that are within 10 miles that compete with them? And write me a comprehensive list of all the things that they do. Those two responses typically could not be further from each other. Normally, they don't understand the differentiators at all in a way they can articulate. And secondly, they normally are able to list about 20% of the services that the owner listed, which means 80% they don't even understand exist. So if you think about how does that inhibit somebody's ability to refer, it's enormous, because I could think you are the greatest on earth, category number one, right? Characteristic number one. But if I only understand 20% of the things that are available, I limit 80% of the referral opportunities I might have. So for instance, guys, you look at the different services that you provide, and if I only engage you for one of them, and you are the most amazing to me in that one area, and then I'm talking to a business buddy of mine that says, hey, do you know anybody who's good at this? If that's not my paradigm of something you help people with, totally missed opportunity, right? Now everything in category number one just went out the window. Doesn't matter how much I value. So the second characteristic is that I believe every company should have a process for how do we continually re-educate our existing clients about why we're different and everything we do. So number one, if they ever have a need in one of those areas that maybe they don't use you for today, they think of you first. You're getting that phone call. They're not calling your competitor who had a TV advertisement about it. They're calling you. Number two, though, they can refer people that are unlike them as far as what they need because they're well educated. So the whole idea, number two, is you got to have a really well educated client base, and that's a process that never ends. I recommend every company do it once a year, and there's a lot of mediums to do it: in person, videos, marketing, but you got to keep them educated.
Yeah, Dan, that's an interesting one. You probably saw me grinning quite a bit throughout that, because our team obviously has worked with you over time in certain exercises. And one of those that always hit me maybe between the eyes a little bit was that one right there, because I think I would imagine much of the audience that's going to watch this video is like we are. We're growing companies and we've evolved over time, where a firm like ours started, in the insurance business many, many years ago, decades ago. And since then, we've evolved. We've evolved a lot. Our business plan, our business model, what we're doing for our clients has evolved into much broader risk management. But many of our clients only experience portions of that at this point, and that's their experience. We do a very good job in most cases, hopefully always, in that particular area for that client. But your point always hit me really right at home, which is if the people that are closest to us, which are our clients, don't understand the breadth of what we can bring and what we do, then how on earth, when they're meeting with somebody that they care about, that they're talking to, that has a need for something, and they don't realize that they can connect the dots, that that's something we can help with, it's a missed opportunity. And so it's just that one always hit me, like I said, square between the eyes. And I think a lot of people listening are probably gonna think that same thing, like, wow, how well do our clients that maybe engage with us in one or two areas of the many that we operate, how well could they articulate what it is our company actually can do?
You guys are a poster child for this, because when I sat down with you guys originally, and you kind of educated me on this ENCORE process and all the different disciplines you're in now, I would have not guessed 70% of those areas. So, every company over time, you work to evolve and continually address the needs of your customer base, which also evolve, right? Hey, why aren't we providing this service? A lot of people need this, so let's go out and do that. But I find if you don't have a process to continually re-educate, you evolve away from your customer base. So their understanding of you stays put, but you're a whole different animal today. So I strongly encourage people to think about that and keep those things in front of people all the time. It's not about cross-selling, trying to force them to buy other stuff. It's about keeping them well educated, so when they have a choice, they call you.
Shame on us if we're not doing it.
Yep.
All right. Well, that's interesting. So, all right. Characteristic number 3.
Yeah. So characteristic number 3 is so silly, but The third, they have to understand two things, the clients. Number one is that you want to help more people. Half of the firms that I interview their client base, when I say, is the company actively trying to grow? Are they looking to bring more clients to the firm? You know, half the clients are completely indifferent. So they say, maybe, I don't know. It's just total indifference. Or they say things like, boy, I don't know if they could handle more clients. These guys are busting at the seams. They're so busy. And every time I call Elliot and say, how's business? He's like, oh, it's crazy. We're opening locations here and there. We got to be careful at the perception we give our clients, because we're trying to look successful, but many times our response backfires. So as a result, number one, they have to know we have capacity to help more people. They have to know that, and that we want to help more people. But number two, the second thing is a lot of clients don't have clarity about what a good referral would look like. Who are those clients? You know, when you look at Ellerbrock-Norris, and how long ago did you guys start?
114 years.
Okay.
1906.
We got it. So I'm guessing the client profile of your firm 114 years ago has evolved somewhat.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Just a bit.
And also a firm like yours, you've added so many robust services now. The client that benefits the most from your value proposition today is different than it was 15 years ago. That doesn't mean you can't still help the kind of people you helped 15 years ago. It's just you appeal to a different demographic today than maybe you used to. So again, it's an education process that we have to ensure our clients, especially those raving fans, the ones that are willing to refer, they've got to understand we want to help those people. When you come across people that need help, we're here, but also there's certain people that probably benefit more than others from what we've put together here. And here's what that kind of demographic looks like. So if you come across those people, you can know they're going to get a lot of positive experience from what we have. So third characteristic, they got to know you want to grow, and ideally who you grow with.
Absolutely. And this is, we're not even through all five yet, Dan, but it's just such a good example of the power of, the process and the research you've done. Because it's, Andy said, the educating clients on all your services hits you square in the eyes. I think this one does more than almost any of them, because it's like, of course my clients know that I would want to bring on more business, like, duh. It's like, well, maybe they don't, because of the perceptions you drive, or just, naturally they think you're a busy person. And, and there are firms out there that are totally fine with not bringing on more clients at this time or whatnot. And so it's just one of those that seems so simple, but like you said, you have to be intentional with educating the client around it.
Well, and I think another thing to add to that, sorry, Dan, but another thing that's interesting there is, we see it in our risk advisor team, our sales team a lot, especially with centers of influence. You're looking, we're talking a lot about clients, but you're certainly looking to build these centers of influence that are going to be natural sources of opportunity and referrals. And one of the things you just said that I think I see our team battle a lot is they start to engage those and they get a few referrals, but they just don't fit. It's not, the center of influence or a client or whomever it is feels as though they're doing a service, a favor, if you will, or whatever. They're on our side, sending an opportunity. If it's not a fit, that can break that down in a hurry. And it's just an education. It's making sure if we're gonna, in order for us to be successful in a relationship like that, they got to understand what it is that's going to work.
Yeah, the analogy I give here, Andy, it's like me being frustrated that my clients aren't hunting for me, but I've not informed them that they should be hunting and that I'm hungry. Right. And I've also not told them when they decide to hunt what they should kill. And then be disappointed with the results. It's like, well, God, how did you expect anything positive? It's an education process. And it's not about, again, we talked on the last session, it's not about a client, I expect you to refer me. It's not about that. But a lot of these people are already choosing to say, I would like to share this experience with other people. We've got to enable them to do that well. That's it.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, I think that was number 3. So now 4, characteristic number 4.
Yeah, number 4. And if you haven't watched the first session, again, I recommend anybody go back and watch that, because we talked about the exact language here to use. But the 4th characteristic is, so again, now we have number 1, a client who really values what we do, so much so they would take the risk and refer. Number 2, They really have a firm understanding of everything we do. So they're more equipped to refer. Number 3, they know who we work with and that we want to help more people. But number 4, they walk out and they meet one of those people. So there's that opportunity that this person needs help. I know Andy's great in this area. Here's Andy's name and phone number. The 4th characteristic of a really savvy and good referral source is that they understand when you identify somebody that you feel benefits from what we do, an introduction to that person is absolutely critical to the outcome of them getting help. The passive, I gave your name to someone the other day, almost never works. I guarantee you everybody watching this has had that happen to them countless times. And it's an education process. So I talked about the language on the last call to educate your clients to make sure when the moment happens, it's not, here's a name and phone number, good luck to you. It's, hey, Andy, I've got somebody I need you to meet.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We've all,
go ahead, Andy. No, go ahead.
all right. Well, yeah, you're right though. We've all experienced that. You hear it all the time, and it's just one of those things where it can break it can break the relationship of the referral when it is just a handful of those. I gave your name, this and that, and nothing comes of them. Eventually that's just going to kind of fizzle out, and the relationship around that referral or that trust there just kind of fizzles with it.
Yeah, it's exactly right. And Dan mentioned on the last episode, I guess, we talked about the specific wording to use and how to be either proactive or reactive in that, which we're going to do a separate episode on how to prepare your clients for that. But yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. So.
And I think what's really interesting, if people watch the first, is you mentioned it early on, your background, and it is around, psychology and how the mind works and things like that. And that's what's really interesting when you think of everything we're talking about right now and the psychology behind all of it. It's really clear why certain ways don't work and others, of course, do. So interesting stuff. Well, I guess that brings us to number 5, last one, which is good because I think we're probably hitting the audience's time allotment, but let's roll into 5.
Yeah, the 5th one is plain and simply, I've always told people, when you look at your entire client base, when it comes to referrals, you have 2 different kinds of people. You have what I call gold mines, and then you have what I call landmines. And they're very different people. Gold mines are really good clients, really profitable clients, but they also have something psychologically where they're comfortable being influential over other people. They recommend things. They're cool with the idea that there's risk, but you also have landmines. And those are people that might be great clients. They might be profitable and good people, but when it comes to the topic of referring, it is not something they're comfortable doing, whether it's because they had a bad experience in the past or, hey, who I use is nobody's business, whatever their rationale is, it doesn't matter. You didn't make them that way. That's just how they are. They also don't typically recommend movies and restaurants. It's not how they're built, right? And we find that about 20% of any given client base are landmines and about 80% are gold mines, which is, if that stat were flipped, that'd be problematic. But I find so many people, business owners, we walk so softly around the topic of referrals. And I believe it's because we're terrified of stepping on a landmine, hurting a relationship, when the reality is, if we can simply identify who they are, that allows us to respect those landmines and never bring up this topic ever. Respect that. But more importantly, it allows us to take those 80% that are gold mines and confidently embrace them in conversations about referring. So one of the questions, and I'll leave it with this: how do you identify a gold mine and a landmine? Because if you don't know who's who, you'll be very passive about this topic. So one of the questions that I ask all of my clients, I would always tell them, look, our company is primarily exists because we help our clients and we help people that are important to our clients. Sometimes our clients want us to help their friends or family, and that involves referring. And I know that topic can be very uncomfortable for people. And I say, on one hand, I could bother you about it all the time. You'll find I will never do that. It's not comfortable for anybody. But I've also learned that if we don't ever discuss it, you may know somebody who deserves help and not have absolute clarity that we've got capacity to help, that they're the right kind of fit for the firm, and that's bad too, because then somebody who may need help doesn't get it. So I simply ask you as a client, periodically, how do I bring up that topic of referring, if at all, because if it's uncomfortable, I will never talk about it. But how do I bring it up in a way that's comfortable for you? And then shut up. Let the silence sit there for 30 seconds and it's okay. What you're going to find, probably 8 out of 10 clients will look at you and say, well, God, it's not that big a deal. Just talk to me about it. Like, hey, who you guys trying to help? Like, what kind of people are you looking? It'll be the most, my God, I made a bigger deal out of that than it is moment. Or the 20% are going to look at you and say, well, you know, I don't really talk about money and things like that. It's not real comfortable, whatever. And you're going to say, perfect. That's why I asked the question. We can, you're important to us. And I never want to bring up something that creates awkwardness. Document it in your system so you never talk to them about it. And that's good, but be intentional with the 80% and make sure they have the other 4 characteristics, and you'll have clients that are amazing referral sources.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, once again, it's something so simple, but I think, like you said, the ones that are the gold mines, it gives you license over time to easily have that conversation, and not have it feel awkward. And I think it also, you know, a lot of these things, when done right, kind of flip a switch in the client's mind where they're going to probably be more apt to remember that conversation even all of a sudden, and you know, be referring you people just because of this discussion that you had with them, you know. And that was a much better way to ask it than I was thinking when you were going through gold mine, landmine. I was thinking like, all right, client, if I step on you, are you going to blow me up or are you going to make me rich? Like, what's going to happen? So it's probably a better way that you went through it.
And to clarify, I've had some people say like, well, landmine, to title somebody a landmine is kind of a derogatory, and it's not about that. It's about that if I bring up a topic that's uncomfortable, it can harm the relationship, which is important to me.
Yeah,
which is like blowing up a relationship. But everybody's like, oh, that's kind of negative.
That's good. Well, this is great stuff. It always is. I know we're trying to keep these at 20 to 30 minutes, and we've gone over both, but that's because there's fantastic content. And I know those of you that watch and are watching all the way to the end and are still listening, you've gotten a lot of great information out of this. As we mentioned, our intention is we are going to continue the series on a couple other topics coming up here. Specifically, our next one will be on
how to proactively train your client to be a good referral source. And
yeah,
Dan, I would have said that better, but
yeah. So we're really going to focus on when you bring on a new client. So we've talked a lot about the ones you already have, but how do we correct the problem going forward so we don't repeat our own mistakes? So when you bring on a new client, what conversations do you have with them up front to ensure the likelihood of them being great referral sources is much higher right at the beginning?
There you go. I knew you guys would bail me out on that as I was drawing a blank on the next topic. So, yeah. That is awesome. All right. Well, at that, unless there's anything else, I think we can wrap up and let everybody get back to whatever it was they were doing before they turned this video on.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys.
All right. Dan, thanks
Dan.
as always. See you guys.